Hello, I'm Marsha Bonhart. Welcome to the Dayton Mayoral Candidates Forum, brought to you by the Dayton Weekly News. This is Dayton's longest running African American news publication. Now, we've invited all of the candidates to join us on Zoom to respond to a series of questions and issues on the minds of citizens of Dayton. Welcome. Hello, and welcome to the Dayton Weekly City of Dayton Commission and Mayoral Candidates Forum. This is an opportunity for the candidates to answer questions that the newspaper's executive team feels relevant to the citizens of Dayton. We welcome mayoral candidates Jeffrey Mims, retired educator and city commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay. Certainly my pleasure.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your flyers that everyone has received for sure. And it mentions bringing your classroom experience to City Hall. We all know you've been an educator for years. But that bringing your classroom experience to City Hall could be taken a little negatively. So I wanted to give you a little time to explain that.
That is so interesting. You know, there's no great city that has a poor school system. There's no great school system that is from a great city. There are lots that hand in hand. The aspect of being an educator is probably one of the more exciting things and more beneficial things for a legislator to have as a background, because it's all about dealing with people. It's all about dealing with people. And before I give more explanation as far as that's concerned, I feel comfortable in also saying that my background is probably more diverse than anyone in terms of this. Special Forces Vietnam vet. Not only, of course, was I a former teacher, but I worked as a custodian at Dayton Press when I got out of the military. I also was a punch press operator at the old Frigidaire plant, and also been in government. And government serves all people in all walks of life at the state level, local level, as well as the national level. So the aspect of being—
I'm sorry, Commissioner, it appears that your focus and is with education, of course. And when you mentioned there's no great school district without a great city, so there obviously is a concern about the city's school district, the Dayton Public School District.
Well, what I'm saying to you is that they are both a partner. They should be partners in terms of this whole process. And as we looked at, for example, what the schools contributed in my time as a legislative director for Dayton Public Schools, I was a lead lobbyist on the bill to build all new schools in Ohio, not just here in Dayton. So in Dayton, for example, we have a $528 million project that was put in place starting in 2003. So that put $528 million into the economy in the city of Dayton. It employed thousands of people. And those dollars that we put into that levy that was passed by the Dayton citizens circulated around this community. So it infused those dollars as far as this community is concerned. Now, to go back to, I guess you're concerned about whether or not maybe my emphasis may be too heavily involved as far as education is concerned. That can't be the case, because the aspect of how we work with young people over my, some 40 years, 45 years of mentoring Black men throughout this community, and the aspect of being a teacher and an educator for the 38 years before my retirement, it all works together because you're still working for people. One of probably the biggest problems that we have probably in this community or any community is the aspect of your medium income. Your medium income drives services, goods, and products as far as the community is concerned. So when you have a well-educated pool of workers, then businesses come to your community and they stay in your community because you have a medium income that supports those services.
Thank you. Which one of your progressive works as a commissioner would make you a good mayor?
Virtually probably all of them. The main thing, clearly, as I indicated, and if this question comes again, it's probably going to be about people, because you cannot function in any organization without how you treat people. We worked in the city, for example, in terms of doing surveys, in terms of working with the employees of the city of Dayton to have them have a better understanding of what the needs are of the citizens by virtue of internal and external surveys. We've done customer service training with our employees, and that customer service training has put us in a position to have at least a 85% approval rating as far as how people feel they are being treated once they either call for services or once those individuals are coming in contact with them as far as service. So again, I go back and say probably one of the strongest strengths that I have is the aspect of how you unify people and put people in a team or in a team position so they feel like they want to work together to make great things happen for this entire community.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about national events, responding to national events regarding community police relations. And of course, the city underwent a 9-month police reform process with members of the community. So do you think that this really addresses the issues of race relations and policing?
Yes, in process, because what we've done as a result of the George Floyd situation, which clearly has indicated that, and I say this with tears in my eye, his sacrifice has caused this nation to see something that many people have seen before and that others have not seen, or they have denied the fact that these things were in existence. That set of circumstances caused people across this nation to stand up and say, we've had enough. And our response to that, even though we have not had some of the tragic situations that have been reflected across this nation, was to put teams of citizens together, along with police, along with attorneys, along with those individuals who are working in the prosecutor's office, to see where we are and how we can come up with a series of recommendations to make sure that we do maybe several things at the end. First of all, have a continuing process towards excellence in terms of being the best model that we can possibly be as far as community and police relationships. And the other underlying issue is to create a system of trust between the police and the citizen. In many communities, there is no doubt, there's real clarity, if you will, with regards to the police role when it comes to dealing with their citizens. In poor communities like Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, you name them, in urban cities where there is a strain, if you will, as far as their dollars are concerned and their economy is concerned, there is doubt in terms of when we have some of the situations that we've experienced by watching, for example, on TV. The aspect of making sure that when my son goes out, your son goes out, when I go out, when you go out, if we're in our casual clothes, for example, being stopped because you have a headlight violation or because you have a, maybe, for example, your taillight is out, or maybe you have expired license plates, that does not require a gun on behalf of the officer. It does not require that use of force. And being chair, along with Willis Blackshear Jr., the state representative of the Use of Force Committee, we decided as a committee to identify pulling your gun as a clear use of force. Those things should not happen when you have these minor incidents. And then when we look across the nation, you see individuals who claim to have concerns about their own safety as a police officer, and unfortunately wind up shooting individuals who are unarmed, who are moving as quickly as they can in the other direction. So again, with the more than 140 recommendations that we've had that come out of different committees, I say we are definitely moving in the right direction. And that's just not my set of words that's saying that. That's part of the 100 or so citizens who've been involved with this process.
Thank you. When we talk about downtown Dayton, of course, and the rebirth and development, especially with the arcade and upscale housing, commercial developments, many subsidized by city money. So citizens, some of them are concerned that this same type of investment has not been seen in neighboring communities. So what will you commit to ensure that Dayton's neighborhoods experience the same type of rebirth and the same type of attention that's needed?
Okay, first of all, I ask you to identify subsidized.
I'm
just for a little clarification in terms of the actions that are downtown.
sorry.
Identify your word subsidized, because I just want to be clear.
Adding, helping, adding money to.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that's a logical and common sense approach. 75% of our budget comes from downtown. Downtown was dead for, 25, 30 years. The population of the city of Dayton was in decline. The aspect of working on your core happens every place across the nation. When you have a positive core, it gives hope to the rest of the city. The city does not have money for building these projects. The city has found out a way by looking and talking to leaders in other cities in terms of best practices to find ways to leverage dollars. So for every $100, we're probably getting somewhere close to $1 million in terms of dollars that we get in return in terms of investments. We didn't pay, for example, for the Levitt Pavilion to be there. There are things that we have been able to subsidize in terms of tax incentives and things of that nature that has caused individuals to want to invest in Dayton. Clearly, we've been involved in some processes like the SID project process, with the improvement process of downtown Dayton, Special Improvement District, where businesses pay to have those extra individuals who work to clean and keep Dayton clean. The work that we've done with our policemen has been another factor of creating a element of safety that makes individual businesses want to come and want to be here in the city of Dayton. That's how we were able to attract and retain businesses down in Dayton. The aspect of, for example, the arcade. The arcade has been a hole in the city of Dayton for more than 30 years. It was something that people looked at in terms of why they did not want to come to downtown Dayton. Now, we haven't clearly solved all the issues in terms of parking, but parking is something that's a problem in any big city in terms of what we have, but we're working on that particular issue each and every day. But the aspect of once you look at where we were, especially 8 years ago, and look at where we are right now, with more and more businesses coming into the city of Dayton, more and more people who are living in downtown Dayton, more and more people, for example, who are moving just to this whole city, in all parts of the city, because our population, for example, that was at 138, 139, 140, has now moved up to approximately 142,000 people that we have in the city of Dayton. And that's because they see some hope and they see some vision. Now, the other aspect of how we function in terms of the other cities, the other parts of the city, you look at the Gym City Market. Yes, it's been a long process. I remember putting my $100 in probably 8 years ago when they first started that project, and the city being involved as well in terms of their investment to help make that happen. We look at several new libraries, one coming up right now on 35 in Abbey. We're also working on a committee to have a statue of Paul Laurence Dunbar at that particular location. The library that we had as far as Philadelphia and the Siebenthaler area of the old Fairview School. Those are investments that are continuing to drive value into this community. And as those values happen, more and more things will happen. Additionally, we passed the first tax increase in 2017 in 34 years. Now that's 34 years without any additional money. And I asked anyone, could your household survive without an increase in 34 years? And at the same time that we had that increase, we're still suffering from the recession that happened in 2007, 2008, 2009, where we were number one in the nation with foreclosure rates. Number one in the nation in terms of job loss, number 49th in the nation in terms of job creation, number 49th in the nation in terms of African-American male graduation rates. These are things that were all systemic problems that we inherited, or at least when I came into this position, that this city has made significant improvement on. And the key thing on the issue 9 that was passed in 17 was aspect of giving us 20 more police officers, giving us more support for the opioid crisis that we were dealing with by having us be able to hire more EMS officers or practitioners, putting more money into helping our recreation park areas, putting money into preschool education, because education of preschool children is a community responsibility, not a school responsibility. When you have 2/3 of your children in your county coming to school in kindergarten 2 and 3 years behind in their developmental skills, and then 5 minutes after during the school, you're blaming the school system, that is totally, totally unfair in terms of making that type of assessment. So in order for us to have, again, young people getting a good, healthy start educationally, it's a community responsibility. And so we were one of the leading cities across the nation to do something of that nature. And additionally, the majority of that tax, 65 to 70% of that tax was paid for by people who live outside of the city of Dayton, because it's the income tax.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am.
Governor DeWine has announced an initiative, and this will address minority health and racial disparities. The commissioners and of course, Mayor Whaley praised the declaration that racism is a public health crisis. And what are the thoughts on that declaration, and what's going to be done to address that racial disparity?
Well, first of all, it's way overdue. Way overdue. 2 years ago, Citibank did a study. It's a long one, but it's been summarized to a degree to help us understand very clearly that, I think it's 16 trillion dollars is lost in terms of gross national product in this nation because of racism. $16 trillion are lost because of that. And when we look at where we are and where we would be if this nation had a better sense, a better understanding of the value that each person, male or female, white or black, it doesn't make a difference. That the value that they would bring to this nation if they were not infused with the racism that we have to deal with. Perhaps it's clear. One of the reasons why I went to college is because I was discriminated against in an employment process at the old Dayton Press, where I was told, first of all, that I was underqualified for an apprenticeship program. And after getting several letters of recommendation, going through interviews, et cetera, then I was told that 5 weeks later that I was overqualified for the same apprenticeship program that I was underqualified for 5 or 6 weeks prior to. So based upon that, because I did have a quality education, I chose to go to the Central State University, and I got involved in the educational process there. But the point that I'm making, that it made me a productive, contributing citizen to this city and to this region. And there's so many people with stories like mine and worse that because of racism have not been able to get to that particular point. So yes, it's a major problem. Yes, it's way overdue in terms of them addressing that. And we made that declaration more than 2 years ago. And even going further right now with our plans to work with diversity and inclusion within the city structure, and to make sure we are clear with individuals as we try to address these issues, that there's a difference between being equal to try to catch people up as opposed to being equitable in terms of catching people up. And equitable, as you know, is equal plus whatever you need to close that gap. So when we look at where we are within the city, we notice that there are a lot of things that we have also led and pushed for, like through the Miami Valley Regional Planning Council, which is a regional piece, to make sure that we take the lead in showing those organizations, those city structures and municipalities that they need to do the same thing to make that happen. Additionally, I'm on the equity leadership team through the Miami Valley Regional Planning Council and Learn to Earn, to work with how we address these issues in our county. And the aspect of us going back to school, for example, reading a book on how to be an anti-racist, and then going through that process where we share experiences about our personal lives, and to relate those issues to some of the aspects that are in that book. the book by Kendi. So it's very important strategic work that we're doing with regards to that. And I look forward to all of the different groups. So we have several groups throughout this city who are doing this. So we're not the only ones. How we merge these pieces together to get more and more people to realize that, yeah, it is a crisis. And there are major benefits other than just having people of different colors and different races work together, but there are financial benefits to this country, this city, and this nation.
Absolutely. But I think people, average people in the city who are concerned about it, and I know there are groups and I know there are studies, but I think the folks, the voters want to see something more concrete. They want to know rather something more concrete in terms of how this is going to be addressed. Does it mean you're going to hire more police officers of color, more teachers of color? What specifics can the city give?
Okay, well, first of all, again, I walked probably, I don't know, 3,000 houses, and I've been in Dayton all my life. So I talk to average people every day. So I know what average people are saying. So the average people, the average voters, clearly, I know what's happening. So I don't think the group of the individuals that I'm talking to are any different from the people that you're talking to. Okay, it's probably I'm talking to a much broader audience. The other issue in terms of what you're saying specifically, we have been able to increase our local and minority hiring pools. We've involved, again, let's go back to schools again. We've done some things in partnership with our labor unions and those to work with the schools to create a set of training programs for one, police and fire, okay? We have that academy, if you want to call it such, over at Belmont High School. Two, we have involved ourselves in one of the recommendations, a series of recommendations with regards to how we are addressing the issues of hiring more policemen and policewomen of color. And that is something that's reflected in some of the recommendations that we have. We've also talked about more training. So it's not sometimes always the aspect of a policeman or policewoman of color, because we see across the nation, unfortunately, some of the kind of actions that we're not happy with on behalf of police are unfortunately sometimes coming from a policeman of color.
Sure.
So
those were just off the top of my head, some suggestions just to have some concrete plans. You know better than I. This is just me just asking. Yeah.
You're the messenger. I understand. Okay, in terms of the person asking the questions. So and they're good questions too. So I don't mean to infer that they're not. The aspect of how we do training, the psychological testing and those type of circumstances are all critical elements of how you create these kind of conditions for individuals who are going to be charged with the responsibility of protecting the citizens of this city. And that is critical. And everyone who asks that question has a right to a good answer. And again, I'm hoping to give you the best answer I can, because this is clearly an issue that, like I mentioned before, is not something that we take lightly, which is why we involve ourselves in this whole police reform process. And it's one that so many of us take very seriously. The aspect of some police persons shooting maybe a little bit too quickly is something that is a challenge that sometimes we don't understand as well as we should. And we don't accept all the situations that have happened the way that some people would like for us to. Making split decisions, sometimes having the best training and the best understanding of the circumstances that you're involved with puts an officer in a better position to make the right decision and to make the decision that they have to live with, that they can live with honestly, and be able to go to sleep at night. One of the things that we're investing in right now is a simulator process that will add to the training of our officers to be able to look at certain things. And some of the kids are playing these things all the time on video games. But to be able to be in some of these situations and make the right decision based upon their training and based upon some of the bias that they may have whether or not you are really in a situation of danger or not. Do you just hold your gun, or do you pull it out and you shoot right away? What steps do you take to try to de-escalate? All these things are related to the issue of how you train and how you select and how you continuously retrain to make sure that those individuals understand that safety of each and every citizen is their primary responsibility.
Thank you, Commissioner. What will you do to ensure that the city administration reduces its number of no bid contracts? Many of your platforms, of course, are around economic development or inclusive development. So what are your plans? What are the plans for the city to ensure that those no bid contracts and instead promotes full open competition?
Okay, that well, actually, we do a lot with that. The primary thing that we do that is ongoing, that has not been done for quite a while, is to work to increase the pool, because we have a lot of sole source type of organizations that when we have something that needs to be done, we don't have as many businesses or organizations who have that set of skills to make those things happen. It's just been maybe 25, 30 years ago where the school systems began to focus on more and more test scores and more people going to college. And while those things are viable goals, at the same time, they took away the infusion of dollars into vocational programs and the programs dealing with industrial arts, dealing with machine shop training, metal shop, those type of things that we are sorely lacking for right now, electronics. Those type of functions are never going to go away, but we stopped training young people to be able to do those type of jobs. And so right now what we have is a set of circumstances where we're trying to go back to those type of programs in our schools, in our technical schools, so that those young people can fill those voids that we have, because that's the primary reason why we don't have as many local and minority contractors. Is the primary reason why we don't have as many of these companies that can do so many diverse things. And it puts us in a situation where we have sometimes the only individual or organizations that are able to do those jobs are those companies sometimes that are maybe outside the city of Dayton, or they have maybe very few, or if any, minorities to be involved in terms of those contracts. So again, I really appreciate that question, because that is a key question. And again, I know Commissioner Shaw was heavily involved, along with myself and some of the other labor groups, to put these apprenticeship programs in place in partnership with DPS to make sure that when some of those young people came out, they can work in some of those areas making $50,000, $60,000 a year and don't have college debt.
And I just want, this is just personally, I wondered if, as you're saying that the Dayton Public School District is now not really promoting vocational education.
And it's not just, it's not just them. So let me, not just blame them, because it's not just them, okay?
Yes,
urban schools across the nation focus in that particular direction.
Certainly. Thank you for that explanation. So is there any thought about partnering with local community colleges to such as Sinclair, perhaps Edison State, perhaps something like that?
We do. Yes, we do. Yes. So, and again, that's part of that whole process for opponents. And that was the reason why, probably one of the reasons why opponents is named opponents is because of their the strong work and the strong reputation, again, of David opponents, who helped us through a lot of the issues that we dealt with in Dayton Public Schools. But the linkages that we had there with regards to the city school district and many of the vocational programs that they have there. And now what the district has also done is add another vocational element over at Mayoral High School because of the demand. See, the demand for our young people to move into some of those areas so that they can move out of school and into the workforce as quickly as possible. So now they've started another program over at Mayoral High School.
Okay, all right. Commissioner, I think you have, we're finished. I think you've answered everything, and we appreciate your time, and good luck to you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, the whole key is to make Dayton better, and I thank you and your efforts and your, I would say your station, because I'm so used to seeing you on the air, but the newspaper that you're working with, Dayton Weekly, and Mr. Black, you have a legacy, big shoes to follow. But thank you for your time and thank you for your questions.
And this is actually the newspaper's executive team. I'm just moving the process along a little bit, but all the credit goes to the newspaper's executive team.
Well, I understand when you have a big game, you go out and get you a big star to play in that game. So I know you being the free agent, you certainly made that happen.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
All right, have a good one.